All right, Ryan, welcome back to the Betting Public podcast. Uh, Thanks for joining me again. We're going to talk about some gambling, like how the podcast is named after. It's been great talking about all these other topics just to make us seem like we're not degenerates because we really aren't. We are public bettors. The reason why I call this Betting Public podcast is because if you're not putting down very, very large sums of money and taking this very, very serious to where this is your livelihood, then you're just a public bettor. I can equate it to the stock market. If you are a trader that is not institutional, you are considered a retail trader. You're nothing else. You're just a retail investor. And if you're part of the banks, which have very large sums of money, then you are institutional investor. So we are public betting, and I want to talk about my record that I had for the MLB season and four rules to handicapping that I can see would help relate to how I got to where I'm at. I went 21 wins, 16 losses, and four pushes through the first half of the MLB season. Now, most of my games were at even money, where maybe some of them were a little bit less than even. Some of them were a little bit more than even. It's a very balanced approach. So I'm about what you would call 5 units up. What we'll deduct a unit, so we'll just say I'm 4 units up for extra juice or whatever. So if I was putting down $200 a bet, out of my 41 bets, I made $800, which kind of, looks good. But when you take into account all the time and effort I put into making all these bets, you know, I'm at about $20 an hour, which is not ideal for the average worker. You probably want to
Yeah.
make more than $20 an hour. The other thing is, there's been like 89 to 91 games. So to only have 41 bets in roughly 90 games, it's not a lot. There's people who put multiple bets per day per game. They might be in the hundreds right now. I'm at 41. My number one rule is having some self reflection. You got to be true to yourself. One of the things that like I really pride myself on is having some self discipline to not betting when I feel like I'm not comfortable with the bet. I only like to bet on stuff that I win. And as you can see, I've lost 16 times. So that didn't really work out as well. Traditionally in the past, or historically in the past, I've done very well up to this point. Even better than 21 and 16 and 4. Going through lifestyle changes, the focus has deterred a little bit. Um, so I understand that, and I'm not going to bet as much as I normally do. And that's me being true to myself. I could have kept pushing it, and maybe made some really bad decisions because my focus 100% wasn't there. So it's just about knowing where you're at, knowing yourself. Um, uh, During this whole course of 41 games, I was really hot in the beginning. I was really excited for baseball because I knew historically I did really well. And then I made some lifestyle changes and my focus kind of shifted and I started to lose a little bit. I slowed down. Um, Knowing that I wasn't at my peak focus, I couldn't do it. So it's being true to yourself. It's understanding that you're not always going to be the better that you want to be. And even though like I have a podcast where it's named after gambling, just can't always do it. This is real money, you know. I would love to come on here and talk about gambling every day, but hey, if I can't give good advice or if I can't talk about gambling in a winning fashion, then I don't want to talk at all. Now, it doesn't mean I'm being shy or I'm backtracking, but the reality is that I'm being true to myself. Like I want to win just as much. And if I don't feel like I can put that out there, I'm not going to, which is why I try to be responsible with my plays. Say you were to fade me, you're down money. So I still feel happy, even though I wasn't 100% focused on gambling. But it's just a matter of being true to yourself. Like if you can't record your bets and understand where you're at, you're fooling yourself. You are completely fooling yourself. You're not doing yourself any justice. You're not doing anybody else uh, any justice by putting out bad bets. And I think it's just a matter of understanding where you're at. You have to understand where your money's at, what you're doing, and if you can't get that all figured out, why even try, right? It's not a good feeling. Like, if they call it kind of chasing, if you're losing and you're just continuously making bad bets, the best thing to do when you're losing is to regroup, refocus, and get back to what you're doing best. And as long as you can do that, I feel like you're going to be successful. You know, I had a great start. I had kind of a middle to bad middle, and then my last like 7 bets, I went 5-1-1. So, and that really brought up my overall. I'm only up 4 or 5 units. Well, those 4 or 5 units are in my past 7 plays. Because I started off hot, got kind of cold, wasn't doing so well. My focus wasn't there, and then as soon as my focus got back in clear view, I felt really good about some plays. I struck it, and that was the big difference. You know, the other thing that I just want to mention is you have to be honest. Like, it's very hard to come up on here and say I've only up 4 units, 5 units after 41 plays. And if I was down 4 or 5 units after 41 plays, I would still come on here and talk about it. You have to be honest. As soon as you're honest, everything falls into place. And, whether you're a gambler on Twitter, you're not on Twitter, you just go to the casino and you gamble. If you're not honest with yourself and where you're at, it's very, very hard to maintain a positive lifestyle. Like, I'm very happy with where I'm at as far as being up 4 units. And, I'm going to continue this momentum into the second half of the MLB season. I'm looking forward to, a lot more winnings. But the matter of the fact is, I have to be honest, I wasn't as good as I should have been in the first half. So I think it's really important to understand that. So it's kind of a long number one, but it's the most important number one. Knowing your record, knowing your money, understanding what you were doing wrong, looking back at all that history, and knowing your strengths and weaknesses. My weaknesses were when I'm not focused, I'm not winning. When I'm focused and I have that adrenaline pumping, like in the beginning of the season, I was winning. When I was focused in the end of the first half, I was winning. I was losing when I wasn't focused, and it wasn't a good feeling. Now I'm happy after looking back and just seeing it. So number two, I want to talk about, and you may have some questions on this, because this first one, there's no questions. It just is what it is. You have to be honest. You have to understand Vegas. And I think one of the key things I always talk about is you have to understand nothing's easy. Vegas was not built on giving away easy picks. Part of it not being easy is being uncomfortable. If you make a pick and you're uncomfortable, it means you're doing something right. It's not the opposite. Vegas wasn't giving away comfortable picks. Comfortable is easy. And understanding Vegas, they know what they're doing more times than you know what you're doing. And I'm going to give a clear example. Just a week ago, when I started going on this tear, I had projected a game between the Blue Jays and the Tigers. It was the first game of the series. The Blue Jays were coming off of a doubleheader. I believe they were playing the White Sox. This is why I was in tune to this type of situation. I looked at that doubleheader and I had said to myself, I said, man, they're playing 2 games today. Now they have to go on the road. They were already on the road and play another game within hours against the Tigers. Like, I looked at that and I said, this looks like a good opportunity. When that game came, I looked at it very hard. I really wanted to make a play on the Tigers because, come on, think about it. The Blue Jays coming off a doubleheader. The Tigers were at home. They're staying at home. Full advantage should be on them. Blue Jays are a better team, but the Tigers, bad teams win, and Tigers aren't even that bad. So when I looked into the scenario, my first initial instinct, which is sometimes the wrong instinct, not always, is to go Tigers. Tigers money line. I was getting plus money. It was an easy pick. It's too comfortable. I started looking around, doing my research, and it turns out all the money was on the Tigers, but the line wasn't moving. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Well, if Vegas understands that the favorite to win that game, which was the Blue Jays, by the way, are having all the money against them and the line isn't moving in the Tigers' favor, meaning you should start seeing, even to minus Tiger money, then they're going to understand that you're on the wrong side. What's happening is Vegas knows that the Tigers are going to lose. And how do they know that? They just know it by analytics, statistics. They have they have formulas that you can't even imagine. And if they thought the Tigers were going to win that game, they wouldn't move the line. They didn't move the line. And I looked I looked at the research and I saw all the money was on the Tigers, and it was just a couple tweets by some people. One of them had the money out there. The other one said, all the money's on the Tigers. Time to go on the Blue Jays. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, but in logic, you would think that after a doubleheader, traveling, and then having to play the next day, and they didn't even have a good pitcher out there, that the Tigers would win. Sure enough, Tigers lost that game by like 10 points. Okay. So Vegas won all this money because they had all the money on it. And the line never moved. If the line was moving, then it would have been more of an opportunity for people to take the Blue Jays. But they didn't want that. They wanted everyone on the Tiger. So understanding Vegas. Now, this isn't every scenario, but it happens a lot where you're going to see a team that Vegas has a strong indication on their part be the right side, but everyone thinks that the other side logically, which kind of makes sense, but not to Vegas eyes. So Vegas won all that money, and that's how Vegas is Vegas. And these books, they all work under a formula that I would love to crack. They have computer generated analytics, and they know. That's why some of these games are so close. You'll see a game that's total at 8.5, and there'll be 9. The next day, 8.5, it'll be 8. Like, you're playing this thin line. Like, how do they come so close to these numbers? They know. They'll put a high total out there, 11. Oh, that they, easy. They can stay under 11 runs. Game ends in 8-7. 15-run game. So these are just small little things that I like to just understand is Vegas is always out to trick you.
Oh yeah.
Always out to trick you. It's like imagine you going to the table at the blackjack table and them telling you, I think you have a really good chance of winning. You should do this.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you lose and you're like, well, I thought you said I was going to have a good chance of winning. Like, everything looked good. I knew what the cards were going to be in the deck. And you told me hey, it was a good deal. But then Vegas swept you. It's usually when Vegas gives you this indication that you're going to lose before you even play, that's when you win. Whatever you think you're going to do, Vegas is going to do the opposite. Now, I didn't make that bet. I stood off of it once I saw that money. And I told myself, I go, this looks like a scenario where the Blue Jays are going to win the first game and then the Tigers are going to win the second game. Like, you're going to come back from a doubleheader. You're going to play that first game. You're going to spend that night in Detroit, have to come back the next day after that. It looks like the Tigers are going to win. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And in that meantime, I can imagine there were bettors who saw that. Oh, look, the Blue Jays just beat the hell out the Tigers. I'm going to bet on the Blue Jays now in the second game. Not even realizing the Blue Jays passed. Or maybe they did, but they just realized, hey, if they can beat them off coming off of a doubleheader, into the next game, they're going to continue, right? Wrong. They lost the next game. Just when they got everyone off of the Tigers onto the Blue Jays, the Tigers end up winning. Vegas wins twice. And that's why Vegas is Vegas. That's why you see all the big building. That's why they make the numbers, and that's why the betting public just gets fooled into these scenarios where it looks nice and juicy, but it's not. Then you get caught up into a continual loop of picking the wrong side. And no, I did not make that bet the next day on the Tigers. I wish I would have. I thought of it. I looked into it historically. By the time I was going to make the bet, the game had already kind of started. It was like in the first innings. I'll lay off of it. And I was wrong. I should have definitely played it and jumped on it even faster. And but it helped me. Just, you have to have that reassurance that Vegas knows what they're talking about. Number three, man. Number three. Look, you have to join others and you have to see what others are doing. And when I looked at this last number two, when I looked at the Blue Jays versus Tigers, I looked into a couple groups that I'm in and nobody had the Tigers. And I thought that was kind of weird because I was like, yeah, I think this is a good scenario for the Tigers. How come no one's on it? These are all very smart people. Now, they're not always going to win, but if a scenario looks so good, why isn't everyone else on it? They were not part of all the money on the Tigers. So it really kind of helped me stay off the Tigers that day as well, too. Not only did I see tweets on the money, but I saw that a group of other bettors weren't falling for the same bait that I was potentially falling into. I joined others into looking at it. I did my own research and looked at all the angles. Why would the Tigers have all the money on them? Well, they look like the juicy spot when you look at the Blue Jays. Why would the Blue Jays not have all the money on them? Or why would the Blue Jays? Because people thought they're coming off a doubleheader.
Yeah.
So you gotta understand Vegas. You have to understand yourself, and you have to understand what other people are doing. Those are the three main factors that I would say make a good handicap. Number 4, just never get discouraged, man. I started off hot, middled out in the middle, got my focus back, kept going. Now I'm up 4 units before the half. Never get discouraged. It's very easy for people to blow their money, lose. That's why it's important to start off really good first. It's easy to say, but that's the truth of reality. It's even when you go to the crap table, I always like to say this. If you lose immediately, don't even try anymore. Get discouraged. You're not going to win.
Yeah.
But if you make some money, walk away from the table, go back there again. And if you lose again, well, now you're even. Always stay above water, never below water. Once you get below water, get your focus back. When you're above water, even if you lose after you win, never get discouraged, because more than likely you're going to repeat what you did in the first place. So never get discouraged and keep coming back, because this is the Betting Public Podcast. We'll be back in a little while. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.